Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Today in African History with Baba Shaka. I'm Baba Shaka and today is February 17th, 2021, and it is also the birth anniversary of one of the most influential political thinkers and community organizers in American history. Huey Newton was an African in America, political thinker, political activist, and co founder of the Black Panther Party in 1966. When Huey was convicted for a fatal shooting of a police officer, his imprisonment became a common cause among activists in the United States. The slogan, Free Huey, appeared on banners and buttons at protests across the country. He was later released after two retrials resulted in hung juries. Huey P. Newton was born in Monroe, Louisiana on February 17th, this date, back in 1942. He was named after Huey P. Long, the former governor of Louisiana who became notorious as a radical populist in the early 1930s. In 1945, Huey's family moved to California, drawn by the job opportunities that arose in the Bay Area as a result of the wartime industrial boom. They struggled financially and moved around often throughout Huey's life. Huey completed high school, which he later described as an experience that nearly killed his urge to inquire, without being able to read. Imagine that. He finished high school without being able to read, but he later taught himself. And after high school, he earned an AA degree from Merritt College and took law school classes at Oakland City College. Starting in his teens and continuing through college, Huey was arrested for petty crimes, stuff like vandalism and burglary. In 1965, when he was 22 years old, Huey was arrested and convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Most of his sentence was served in solitary confinement. During his time at Oakland City College, Huey joined the Afro American Association, which inspired him to become politically and socially conscious. He later said that his Oakland public education had made him feel ashamed of being black, but that his shame began to transform into pride once he encountered black activists. He also began reading quote unquote radical activist literature, including works by Che Guevara and El Hajj Malik Shabazz, popularly known as Malcolm X. Huey soon realized that there were few organizations advocating for lower class Africans in America in Oakland. In October 1966, he joined with schoolmate Bobby Seale to form a new group, which they called the Black Panther Party for Self Defense. The organization was focused on fighting police brutality in Oakland and San Francisco, a fight that continues to this day. With Bobby as chairman and Huey as Minister of Defense, the Black Panthers quickly assembled a membership and began patrolling Oakland neighborhoods. When police were spotted interacting with black citizens, the Panthers would approach and inform the civilians of their constitutional rights. Huey took part in such actions sometimes while brandishing a law book. The organization adopted a uniform of black leather jackets, black berets, and sunglasses. Their distinct uniform, as well as their prominent display of guns and bandoliers of shotgun shells, made the Black Panthers highly noticeable. By the spring of 1967, stories about Huey and the Black Panthers began appearing in major publications. The Black Panthers encouraged black citizens of Oakland to begin carrying firearms, citing their constitutional rights under the Second Amendment, and tensions between the police and the Black Panthers continued to grow. An article published in the New York Times on May 3rd, 1967, described an incident in which Huey, Bobby, and about 30 other Black Panthers strode into California Capitol in Sacramento with their weapons prominently displayed. The story was headlined Armed Negroes Protest Gun Bills. The Black Panthers had arrived in dramatic fashion to voice their opposition to a proposed law against carrying firearms, because it seemed the law had been drafted specifically to curtail their activities. At that time, the governor of California was one Ronald Reagan, who later became president of the United States, And as for those of you who know and study this, Ronald Reagan and the majority of the Republican Party are often touting the Second Amendment and gun rights and the freedom to carry guns. But when African men and women start carrying guns, then they create laws to curtail our activities, constantly moving the goalposts. Weeks later, in another article in the New York Times, Huey was described as being surrounded by armed followers in an apartment in San Francisco's Haight Ashbury neighborhood. Huey was quoted as saying, "Political power comes through the barrel of a gun." About a year after the Black Panthers first rose to prominence, Huey became entangled in a high profile legal case. The case centered around the death of John Fry, who died after pulling over Huey and a friend for a traffic stop. Huey was arrested at the scene, and in September 1968, he was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and received a sentence of 2 to 15 years in prison. Huey's incarceration became a major cause among young radicals and activists and freedom fighters. Free Huey buttons and banners could be seen at protests and anti-war rallies nationwide, and rallies for Huey's release were held in numerous American cities. At the time, police action against Black Panthers in other cities made headlines. Some of you may have already gotten a chance to see the new movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. If you haven't, I suggest that you do. You get a chance to take a look at Chairman Fred Hampton's activities as the leader of the Black Panther Party in Chicago and his demise at the hands of government agencies. In May 1970, Huey was granted a new trial. After 2 trials were held and resulted in hung juries, the case was dropped and Huey was released. The specific events as well as Huey's potential culpability surrounding John Fry's death remain uncertain. Following his release from prison in 1970, Huey resumed leadership of the Black Panther Party and began to studying at the University of California, Santa Cruz, where he earned a BA in 1974. After a period of relative quiet, Huey was charged with the murder of a teenage sex worker named Kathleen Smith. He was also arrested for assaulting his tailor. Huey fled to Cuba, where he lived in exile for 3 years. But in 1977, Huey returned to California, asserting that the political climate in the United States had changed enough that he could possibly receive a fair trial. After juries were deadlocked, Huey was acquitted of the murder of Kathleen Smith. He returned to the Black Panther organization and also returned to college. In 1980, he received a PhD from the University of California, Santa Cruz. He is Dr. Huey P. Newton. And his thesis was about the government repression of the Black Panther Party. In the 1980s, Huey grappled with drug addiction and alcohol abuse. He remained involved with neighborhood programs pioneered by the Black Panthers. However, in 1985, he was arrested for embezzling funds. He was later arrested on a weapons charge, go figure, and was also suspected of being involved in the drug trade, and I use the word suspected. In the early hours of August 23rd, 1989, Huey was shot and killed on the street in Oakland, California. His killer was reported on the front page of the New York Times, and a gentleman by the name of Tyrone Robinson confessed to the murder, and it was concluded officially that the killing was connected to Newton's significant death caused by his cocaine addiction. Today, Huey's legacy is one of leadership within the Black Panther Party, as well as his so-called controversial convictions and allegations of violence. Now, this program is not designed to take you as deep as you need to go into the life and the philosophies and the activities of Dr. Huey P. Newton. It is designed to hopefully raise your curiosity enough that you go and do some research. So I highly suggest that you read or at least listen to some of Dr. Newton's speeches so you can get a better understanding of his thinking, his philosophy, his organization, his involvement with the Black Panther Party and their impact on American society. Okay? So, you have some homework to do. For those of you who attended public schools and have received free breakfast before school, or maybe you have children who attended public schools and they received free breakfast, you have Huey, Bobby, and the Black Panther Party to thank for that, because that was one of their major programs, the free breakfast program for children, a big part of the 10-point plan, which I also suggest that you get familiar with, the Black Panther Party 10-point plan. Now, when they first started their breakfast program, the FBI, the leader of the FBI, said that this program was the greatest threat to American democracy. Imagine that. Feeding hungry children in the morning was the greatest threat to American democracy. Fortunately, many local school boards all around the country recognize what the Black Panthers recognize, and that is children learn better when they're not oppressed by hunger in the classroom. So if you or your children ever receive free breakfast at school, thanks to Huey, Bobby, and the Black Panther Party. All right. Well, once again, I want to give a special shout out to President Baba Mosi and the sisters and brothers of the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division number 330 UNIA ACL Rehabilitation Committee. That is a Universal Negro Improvement Association originally founded by the late great Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and the African Community League, because these folks are helping to promote these daily lessons on their Facebook pages, because you see, we all have the same goal, and that is to enlighten African people of their glorious past. So if you are already a subscriber, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you for your continued support. If you have not yet subscribed, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button right there. It's right there. SUBSCRIBE. Just hit it. It doesn't cost you anything. Ring that bell so that you can be notified whenever we upload one of these videos. And please share. Right? Please share with the folks around you, especially the young people around you. So, inshallah, until tomorrow, this is Baba Shaka with Today in African History.